Hey creative souls, writers, word witches. If you follow me on other channels, especially on Instagram, you've probably seen my posts about my writer's walks that I take. My walks are a regular part of my writing practice. I used to be a runner, and way back then I found that every time I went on a run, I would work out some kind of writing problem that I'd been struggling with. So I just did a video on if you've written Act 1 and you're stuck, can't figure out how to get to Act 2, I recommend taking walks and thinking about it and talking to your protagonist, getting into their heart and skin. Writing can clear your thinking and your mind, which is obviously a benefit, right? So that can help. Walking also improves your mood. So I don't know about you, but if I'm feeling down or anxious, it's a little bit harder for me to get my butt in the chair and start writing. And granted, writing can help us work through those things. But for me, I find if I'm in a better mood than not, the writing tends to come a little bit more easily. And as it turns out, there's some science behind why walking also helps with our creative output. Separate from clearing our mind and boosting our mood, it actually enhances our creative output. And this study was done by a team at Stanford in 2014. And I'm sure there have been plenty of others done since then. But I felt like in a video on YouTube, I didn't really have the space and the time to go through all of them. This one, I find interesting what they discovered, so I wanted to share it. And I will put a link in the description of this video to an article about the study and then the paper that the team who did the study wrote about it. So if you want to look at either version of those, or both of them, those will be in the description. So what they did is they compared groups who walked outdoors and sat outdoors. Then they did the same for groups indoors. And what they found was this: even those who walked indoors, say on a treadmill, even facing a wall, they realized more creative output than those who just sat, even those who sat outdoors. They also found that those who walked both indoors and out had more what they call high quality novel analogies. So novel in this case is new, that they generated on their own, which means that they were given a phrase as a prompt and then asked to provide a response to it. And those who walked both indoors and out had far more creative answers and comparisons than those who sat in either scenario. So it enhanced what's called their divergent mode of thinking, the ability to think one thing and then branch off from that and think about other things related to it. And this is interesting. They also found, however, that the walking did not help with their focus. So this is the convergent mode of thinking. In fact, those who were asked to respond to certain questions as they walked that required focus didn't do as well as those who sat. So what do we take away from this? Walking is ideal for brainstorming. It's great for creative brainstorming and solving creative problems, like how to get from Act 1 to Act 2, how to understand why your characters aren't behaving the way you wanted them to or thought they would, and really getting to the core of your protagonist's deepest desire or their deepest wound, etc., etc. All right, so as I'm reading this article and thinking about this, I couldn't help but think, well, what does this mean for disabled people who don't have the ability to walk? And I'm thinking of authors like Jean-Dominique Bowlby, who wrote the Diving Bell and the Butterfly. Bowlby had locked-in syndrome, couldn't move, couldn't speak. There's also Laura Hildenbrand, who wrote Seabiscuit and Unbroken. She had chronic fatigue syndrome and couldn't leave her house for 2 years. Or Stephen Hawking, who had ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease. So there's no doubt that we still have a lot to learn about the connections between the body and the mind. And does this mean that if you're a writer who doesn't have the ability to walk, that your writing practice is doomed? Of course not. Think about the authors I've just mentioned, and I'm sure there are others I haven't thought of that you know about. So let me know in the comments if you can think of others. I'd also love to know if walking is part of your writing practice and what it does for you. So please leave me some comments about that. And for now, if you don't walk regularly and you're able to, give it a try. And I'd love to know how it impacts your writing practice. As always, sending you mad writing mojo. Happy writing.